there is a threshold you crossed. You may not have noticed the exact moment it happened. It might have been this morning when you sat quietly before the world started asking things of you. It might have been last night when you lay in the dark and felt something bat and still beneath your thoughts, something that had no name but felt more real than anything you could put into words. It might have been a week ago or a month, when something in your life broke open, and instead of closing around the wound, you opened wider than you ever had before. Whenever it happened, however it happened, something in your energy field made contact with a layer of reality that most people never reach. Not because they are less than you, not because you are special in a way that excludes others, but because something in your field became coherent enough, still enough, open enough to touch what physicists call the 0-point field. And once your aura makes that contact, once your electromagnetic signature resonates with the ground state of the universe itself, there is no returning to what you were before, not because you are trapped in something new, because you have remembered something so fundamental that forgetting it completely is no longer possible. Today, I am going to show you exactly what happened. Not in metaphor, not in spiritual abstraction, but in the actual, measurable physics of your personal energy field. I am going to show you what the 0-point field actually is, what it is doing at every point in space, including the space your body occupies right now, what it means that your aura has made contact with it, and why the word contact is almost too small for what actually occurred. Because you did not merely brush against this field. You entered into resonance with it. And resonance, as you are about to understand, is not a moment. It is a new state of being. This is not a small thing that happened to you. This is the thing beneath all other things, the ground beneath the ground. And your aura found it. Let me start with the field itself, because most of what you have heard about the 0-point field is either too vague to be useful or too technical to feel real. What I want to give you today is both accurate and alive. The physics first, precisely, and then what it means for the living, breathing, radiating human being that you are. In quantum physics, a field is not empty space. A field is a medium that exists everywhere, that has properties, that can carry information, and that responds to disturbances. You are already familiar with fields, even if you do not think of them that way. The gravitational field is everywhere. The electromagnetic field is everywhere. These fields permeate all of space, and they interact with matter, with energy, with each other. They are not nothing. They are something that behaves according to precise mathematical laws. Now, in classical physics, there was an assumption that if you cooled a system down to absolute zero, to the lowest possible temperature, all motion would stop. All vibration would cease. The system would go quiet. But when quantum mechanics developed in the early 20th century, something extraordinary emerged from the equations. Even at absolute zero, even at the lowest possible energy state, quantum systems do not go still. They continue to fluctuate. They continue to vibrate. The equations demand it. This is not an error in the math. This is a fundamental feature of reality. The universe cannot be completely still at any scale, at any temperature, under any conditions. Stillness, total stillness, is forbidden by quantum mechanics. The energy that remains in a quantum system at its ground state, the energy that cannot be removed no matter how cold or how empty the system becomes, is called zero-point energy. And the field that carries this energy everywhere in space, the field that is humming and fluctuating and alive at every point in the universe, including the space between your cells, is the zero-point field. Werner Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is part of what makes this necessary. You cannot simultaneously know both the exact position and the exact momentum of a quantum particle. The more precisely you pin down one, the more uncertain the other becomes. This is not a limitation of our instruments. It is a fundamental feature of quantum reality. And one consequence of this principle is that quantum systems cannot be at rest. A particle at rest would have a precisely known momentum of zero and a precisely known position, which the uncertainty principle forbids. So the particle must always be moving, always fluctuating, always vibrating at some minimum level. This minimum level of vibration, summed across every quantum field that exists, is the zero-point field. Physicists have calculated what this implies about the energy density of the vacuum, of what we call empty space. The numbers are staggering. Some calculations suggest that a single cubic centimeter of what we call empty space contains more energy than all the matter in the observable universe. Now, those specific numbers are debated, and the exact figure depends on how you cut off the calculation at high frequencies. But the principle is not debated. The vacuum is not empty. It is seething with energy. It is alive with quantum fluctuations. It is, in the most literal physical sense, the most energetic thing in existence. This is the field your aura just entered into resonance with. If this is landing for you, and you feel the depth of what we are only beginning to touch here, there is something more I want to offer you. Have you spent years trying to feel lit up again? Visualizations, affirmations, vibration work, and the light still won't hold? Every one of those methods is telling you to push harder, do more, add another technique. It's not working because the issue isn't that you don't have enough light. 6 specific patterns are sitting on top of it. They're called the frequencies of forgetting. The remembering field, a quantum guide to returning to the light. You forgot you were carrying walks through all 5 parts of getting those patterns off you. Every tool you used tried to add more light. This one lifts what's been sitting on the light you already carry. The longer you wait, the harder they get to clear. So go open it tonight. The link is in the pinned comment below. Now let us return to the physics of what your aura is doing in this field, and why the contact you have made changes everything about how you radiate. Let me now tell you about your aura in equally precise terms, because the 2 fields, your personal electromagnetic field and the 0-point field, need to be understood as real things before we can talk about what happens when they meet. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field. This is not a metaphor. It is not a spiritual claim. It is a measurable, physical fact. The HeartMath Institute, which has been conducting rigorous research on the heart's electromagnetic field for over 3 decades, has measured this field extending several feet beyond the surface of the body in every direction. The heart's electrical field is approximately 60 times greater in amplitude than the electrical activity of the brain. The heart's magnetic field, which is the component of the electromagnetic field generated by the heart's rhythmic electrical activity, is approximately 100 times stronger than the magnetic field produced by the brain, and can be detected several feet away from the body using sensitive magnetometers called squids, superconducting quantum interference devices. This field is not static. It is not a fixed glow that simply sits around you unchanged. It is dynamic. It pulses with your heartbeat. It carries information. The pattern of your heart's electromagnetic activity, specifically what is called heart rate variability, the subtle changes in the timing between each heartbeat, encodes information about your emotional state, your nervous system's regulatory capacity, and what HeartMath researchers call your coherence level. Coherence is the key concept here. In physics, coherence describes a state in which waves are synchronized, in phase with each other, organized. A laser is coherent light. Ordinary light from a lamp is incoherent, meaning the waves are going in different directions. out of phase with each other, not organized. The difference in power between coherent and incoherent light of the same energy is extraordinary. A coherent laser can cut through steel. Incoherent light of the same energy just illuminates a room. When your heart is in a state of high coherence, its electromagnetic field becomes organized, rhythmic, and powerful in a way that incoherent heart activity is not. Heart math research has shown that states of genuine appreciation, love, care, and compassion produce high heart coherence. States of anxiety, frustration, anger, and fear produce low coherence, chaotic, irregular patterns in the heart's electromagnetic output. And crucially, this coherent or incoherent signal is what your aura broadcasts to the space around you. It is what reaches other people's fields before you say a word. It is what the room feels before you arrive. It is what the quantum field reads as your signal. Now here is where these two things, your aura and the 0-point field, come into contact. And here is where the physics becomes extraordinary. The 0-point field is not separate from your body. It is not out there somewhere, in deep space, beyond the reach of ordinary life. It is here. It is in the space between your cells. It is in the quantum vacuum that underlies every atom of your body. Every electron in your body is interacting with 0-point fluctuations right now. This is not philosophy. There is a physical process called the Lamb shift, a tiny but measurable shift in the energy levels of hydrogen atoms that is caused by the interaction between the electron and the 0-point fluctuations of the electromagnetic vacuum. The 0-point field is so real that it produces measurable shifts in atomic spectra. It was predicted theoretically and then measured experimentally with extraordinary precision. The 0-point field is not a concept. It is a measured physical reality. So your body is already embedded in the 0-point field. Your atoms are already interacting with it. The question is not whether you are in contact with it. The question is the quality and character of that contact. The question is whether your electromagnetic field, your aura, is in resonance with the 0-point field or in friction with it. And this is the threshold you crossed. Let me explain resonance carefully, because this word gets used loosely, and I want you to understand it precisely, because precision here is what makes the difference between a vague spiritual claim and something you can actually work with. Resonance occurs when one oscillating system influences another. Oscillating system that shares a natural frequency. The classic demonstration is two tuning forks of the same pitch. Strike one, and the other, across the room, begins to vibrate. Energy transfers between them, not through physical contact, but through the medium of air, through the field between them. The vibrating fork is not pushing the other fork. It is creating pressure waves at a specific frequency. And the other fork, because it is built to respond to that frequency, begins to oscillate in response. Now extend this to quantum fields. The 0-point field fluctuates across an enormous range of frequencies. Every possible frequency is represented in its fluctuations. And your aura, your heart's electromagnetic field, broadcasts at a frequency that is determined by your coherence level. A highly coherent heart field broadcasts a clean, organized, rhythmic signal. That signal has a characteristic frequency and a characteristic structure. When that signal is coherent enough, organized enough, stable enough, it begins to resonate with specific frequency components of the 0-point field. This is not a metaphor for feeling good. This is a description of a physical process in which your personal electromagnetic field enters into a resonant relationship with the ground state of the universe. And when that resonance occurs, something changes in what information is available to you, in what possibilities can collapse from the quantum field of potential into your actual experience. If this is landing for you, if you are feeling something shift as you take this in, I would love for you to like this video and subscribe so we can keep going deeper together. There is a concept in quantum mechanics called vacuum fluctuations and virtual particles. In the 0-point field, particles are constantly flickering into and out of existence. They are called virtual particles because they exist for such a brief time, constrained by the uncertainty principle that they cannot be directly detected in isolation. But their effects are real and measurable. The Casimir effect, in which two uncharged metal plates placed very close together in a vacuum experience an attractive force caused by the pressure difference between the fluctuating vacuum outside and the constrained vacuum between them, is a direct, experimentally verified consequence of 0-point fluctuations. The vacuum is not empty. It is full of potential that is constantly flickering at the threshold of manifestation. What I am suggesting, and what some physicists, including Hal Puthoff and Bernard Heisch, have explored in their work on the 0-point field, is that the 0-point field is not just a source of random quantum noise. It may be the medium through which information is stored and accessed at a fundamental level. Puthoff's work on the zero-point field and inertia, Heischer's work on the connection between the zero-point field and mass, these are serious scientific explorations of the idea that the vacuum is not passive background, but active participant in physical reality. And if your electromagnetic field can enter into resonance with this medium, the implications for what information becomes available to you, for what patterns of reality begin to organize around your signal, are profound. Your aura just entered the zero-point field, and you cannot go back. Not because a door closed behind you, but because you have felt the ground, and you cannot unfeel the ground. I want to tell you about a woman named Mara. She was not a physicist. She had never read a paper on quantum vacuum fluctuations. She was a teacher, and she was exhausted in the specific way that people who give everything get exhausted. A tiredness that lives not in the muscles, but somewhere deeper, in the place where you go to refill and find the well is dry. Mara had been running on the fumes of her original love for her work for 2 years. She still showed up. She still gave. But the quality of her giving had changed in a way she could feel, but could not name. She was dispensing effort rather than radiating presence. She was performing care rather than generating it, and the children in her classroom could feel the difference, not consciously, not in a way they could articulate, but in the way children always feel the field of the adult who is with them. They were a little louder, a little more fractured, a little harder to gather into stillness, because stillness, real stillness, is contagious. And Mara had lost hers. The summer before her 3rd year of teaching in the school that was slowly draining her, Mara went somewhere she had never been. Not a physical place, an inner place. She went to a retreat, not a spiritual retreat, just a week in a small house near a lake with no agenda and no one to be responsible for. And on the 4th day, something happened. She was sitting by the water in the early morning, before the heat came, and she was doing nothing. Not meditating in any formal sense, not trying to feel anything, just sitting. And in that sitting, in that genuine doing nothing, something in her nervous system let go of a tension she had been holding so long she had stopped knowing it was there. Her breathing changed, not consciously, not deliberately. It simply deepened and slowed. Her heart, which had been beating in the slightly elevated, slightly irregular rhythm of chronic low-grade stress, settled into something different, slower, more even, more spacious between the beats. Mara would later describe what happened next as feeling like she fell through the bottom of herself. Not frightening, not dramatic, just a sudden sense of depth beneath her, as if the ground she had been standing on had always been the surface of something much vaster, and she had just, for the first time, felt how vast. She sat there for a long time. She did not move. She did not think. She simply was, in a way she could not remember being since she was very young. What happened to Mara in that moment was not mystical in the sense of being outside of physics. What happened was that her nervous system, freed from the demands and the vigilance and the chronic, low-level stress of her daily life, dropped into a state of genuine coherence. Her heart rate variability, had it been measured, would have shown the smooth, rhythmic, sine wave-like pattern that heart math researchers associate with high coherence. Her electromagnetic field, freed from the chaotic interference of stress hormones and sympathetic nervous system activation, organized itself. It became, in the technical sense, coherent. And a coherent field, as I described, resonates. It finds the frequencies in its environment that match its own organization, and it enters into relationship with them. Mara's coherent field reached into the 0-point field that permeated the space around her, the space between the atoms of the water, the space between the photons of the morning light, the space within her own cells, and it made contact, not with a concept, with the actual ground state of physical reality. She felt it as depth, as vastness, as the sensation of being held by something that had always been there and had always been holding her, but that she had been too busy, too effortful, too contracted to feel. When Mara went back to her classroom in the fall, something had changed. Not her lesson plans, not her curriculum, her field. She walked into that room carrying a coherence she had not carried before, and the children felt it before she said a word. They settled, not because she asked them to, because her field was settled, and fields are contagious. The room organized around her signal. This is what happens when your aura enters the 0-point field. You carry something back, not information you can write down, a quality of organization, a coherence that persists, a depth that other fields can feel. Have you ever had a moment like Mara's by the lake? A moment when your own field seemed to settle into something deeper than you expected, when your energy shifted in a way you could feel but not quite explain? I would love to hear about it in the comments. What did that shift feel like in your body, in your aura, in the room around you? Now I want to take you into the practice, because understanding this with your mind is one thing, and feeling it in your field is another. And the 0 point field is not accessed through the mind. It is accessed through the body, through the heart, through the specific quality of stillness that Mara found by the lake. I want you to take a moment right now, wherever you are, to feel the weight of your body. Not to think about it, to feel it. The actual physical sensation of gravity holding you, of the surface beneath you, supporting your weight. Feel the contact points, your feet on the floor, your back against the chair or the cushion or the bed. The specific texture of being held by the earth. Now bring your attention to your chest, not to your thoughts about your chest, to the physical sensation of your heart beating. You may not be able to feel the heartbeat directly. That is fine. Just place your awareness in the region of your heart, the center of your chest, and let your attention rest there as if you are listening for something very quiet. Now breathe into that space. Not a forced breath, not a performance of deep breathing. Just let your inhale be a little slower than usual, a little fuller, as if you are making room in your chest for something to expand. And let your exhale be complete, unhurried, as if you are releasing not just air, but the tension of trying. Do this 3 times. Slow inhale into the heart space. Complete, unhurried exhale. As you breathe this way, something begins to happen in the electrical activity of your heart. The intervals between your heartbeats begin to regularize. The rhythm begins to smooth. Your heart rate variability begins to shift from the jagged, irregular pattern of stress into the smooth, wave-like pattern of coherence. This is not imagination. This is measurable physiology. And as your heart coherence increases, your electromagnetic field, the field that extends several feet beyond your body in every direction, begins to organize. It begins to broadcast a cleaner, more coherent signal. Now, from that heart space, from that coherent, breathing, open chest, I want you to feel downward, not physically. With your awareness, feel beneath the floor, feel beneath the building, feel beneath the ground, not into darkness, not into anything threatening, but into depth, into the sense of something vast and still beneath everything solid. The 0-point field is not above you. It is not at a spiritual altitude you need to ascend to reach. It is beneath everything. It is the ground beneath the ground. It is what solid matter rests on. It is the quantum vacuum that underlies every atom of every floor beneath you. Feel down into that. Feel the depth of it. Let your awareness fall through the layers of your body, through the floor, through the earth, into the quantum stillness that is humming at the base of all things. You are not going anywhere. You are not leaving your body. You are letting your awareness reach into what is already here, what has always been here, what your body is already embedded in. Stay there for a moment, in that depth, in that stillness that is not empty, but full of potential, full of the quantum fluctuations that are the universe's way of never being completely at rest, of always holding the possibility of everything. Now notice what happens in your chest, in your heart space. Notice if there is a quality of expansion, of warmth, of something releasing that you had not known was held. This is your aura making contact. This is your coherent electromagnetic field resonating with the ground state of the universe. This is the 0-point field responding to your signal. This is not a visualization exercise. This is a real physical process happening in the actual electromagnetic field generated by your actual heart. The feeling of depth and expansion you are experiencing is your nervous system's way of registering the shift in your field's coherence and the resonance that coherence creates with the quantum vacuum around you. Stay here as long as you need to. There is no hurry. The 0-point field is not going anywhere. It is the most stable thing in existence. It was here before the first atom formed. It will be here after the last star goes dark. And it is here now, beneath your feet, within your cells, humming in the space between your thoughts. When you are ready, bring your awareness back up through the layers, back into your body, back into the room. But notice what you bring with you. Notice the quality of spaciousness that remains in your chest. Notice the way your breathing has changed. Notice the sense of depth beneath you that does not go away when you return your attention to the surface of things. That depth is real. That resonance is real. And it does not end when the practice ends. Because you have felt the ground, and you cannot unfeel the ground. Now let me go deeper into what this contact actually does to your aura. Because the 0-point field is not just a place to visit in meditation. It is a source. And when your electromagnetic field enters into resonance with it, something changes about what your aura can do, what it can hold, and what it broadcasts to the reality around you. There is a concept in physics called coherence length. In wave physics, coherence length describes how far a wave can travel and still maintain its organized, coherent structure. A laser has an extremely long coherence length, meaning its organized wave pattern maintains itself over great distances. Ordinary light from a lamp has a very short coherence length because the waves are not organized, and they quickly lose their pattern as they propagate. Your aura has a coherence length. The more organized and coherent your heart's electromagnetic field, the further that organized signal extends before it dissolves into background noise. A highly coherent aura does not just glow brightly in a small space around you. It maintains its organized structure over greater distances. It reaches further. It influences more of the space around you with its organized signal. Now, when your field enters resonance with the 0-point field, something remarkable happens to this coherence length. Because the 0-point field is, by definition, everywhere. It is the universal background. And when your field is in resonance with it, your field is effectively coupled to something that has no boundary, no edge, no limit. Your coherence is not just your own anymore. It is supported by the ground state of the universe. This is why people who have had profound experiences of what mystics call unity, what meditators call samadhi, what ordinary people sometimes stumble into in moments of great beauty or great grief, describe a sense of their boundaries dissolving, not in a frightening way, in an expansive way, as if they have grown to include more than their skin, as if the space around them is somehow part of them. This is not delusion. This is a real shift in the relationship between their personal electromagnetic field and the quantum field that underlies all space. Their coherence length has increased. Their field has coupled to the universal ground, and they feel it as expansion. This is what happened to you. This is what the threshold you crossed actually means. Your field became coherent enough to couple to the 0-point field. And in that coupling, your coherence length expanded beyond anything your personal field could sustain on its own. You borrowed the coherence of the universe. and the universe, being what it is, gave it freely. Here is the part that most people do not understand about the zero-point field, and why your contact with it cannot be undone. The zero-point field is not a passive medium. It is not just background noise that your field happens to resonate with. There is serious scientific speculation, and I want to be clear that this is at the frontier of physics rather than established consensus, but serious, peer-reviewed scientific speculation that the zero-point field may be the medium through which memory and information are stored at a physical level. Carl Pribram, the neuroscientist, and David Bohm, the physicist, both worked toward theories in which information is not stored locally in specific physical structures, but is distributed holographically through fields. Bohm's concept of the implicate order, the idea that what we experience as the explicit, unfolded reality of objects and events is enfolded in a deeper field of potential, bears a striking resemblance to what physics tells us about the zero-point field. The explicit order of matter and energy unfolds from an implicate order of quantum potential, and the zero-point field, with its infinite energy density and its universal presence, is the best candidate physics has for what that implicate order actually is. If this is correct, if the zero-point field is the medium in which information is holographically stored and from which reality unfolds, then your aura's contact with it is not just a moment of resonance. It is a moment of information exchange. Your field, in becoming coherent enough to resonate with the zero-point field, is not just feeling the ground. It is reading the ground, and it is writing to it. Your coherent signal is being registered in the medium that underlies all of physical reality. This is why you cannot go back. Not because something external has changed, because something has been written. Your field's coherent signature has been registered in the deepest medium that exists, and that registration changes what information is available to you, what patterns of reality are accessible to your field, what possibilities can collapse from quantum potential into your actual experience. I want to be precise here about what I mean by possibilities collapsing from quantum potential into experience, because this is one of the most misunderstood ideas in all of popular quantum physics. The measurement problem, the question of how quantum possibilities collapse into specific actualities, is one of the deepest unsolved problems in physics. I am not claiming that your aura causes quantum collapse in the way that measurement does in a physics experiment. That would be an overreach. What I am saying is something more subtle and, I believe, more accurate. Your electromagnetic field interacts with the physical environment around you. It influences the nervous systems of people near you, because the heart's electromagnetic field can be detected in the EEG of another person who is nearby and paying attention. It influences the quantum coherence of biological systems in your own body, because there is growing evidence that quantum coherence plays a role in biological processes, including photosynthesis, enzyme catalysis, and possibly neural processing. And it broadcasts a signal that other fields respond to, because fields interact. That is what fields do. When your field is in a state of high coherence, coupled to the 0-point field, the quality of those interactions changes. The signal you broadcast is cleaner, more organized, more powerful. The biological quantum coherence in your own cells is supported rather than disrupted. The nervous systems of people near you receive a coherent signal rather than a chaotic one. And the patterns of reality that organize around you, the events, the encounters, the opportunities, the connections, begin to reflect the quality of your broadcast. This is not magic. This is field physics applied to the most complex electromagnetic field generator in the known universe, which is the human heart-brain system embedded in a body that is itself embedded in the 0-point field. And I want to pause here and ask you something, because this community is full of people who have felt exactly this shift in their own field. Have you noticed a moment when people responded to your energy differently? When you walked into a room and something settled? When your light seemed to reach someone before your words did? Share that in the comments. Your experience matters, and it contributes to the collective coherence of everyone reading here. Let me tell you about a man named Elias. He was a scientist, a real one, with a laboratory and a grant and a career built on the precise measurement of things. He had no patience for what he called soft thinking, the kind of thinking that substituted beautiful language for rigor. He had spent his career building instruments sensitive enough to measure things that were almost too small to be real. And he had learned that the universe rewards precision and punishes wishful thinking. Elias did not go looking for the 0-point field. He was already working with it. His research involved measuring the Casimir effect, the tiny attractive force between closely spaced metal plates in a vacuum caused by 0-point fluctuations. He had spent years refining the measurements, accounting for every possible source of error, building instruments of extraordinary sensitivity, He knew the 0-point field as numbers on a readout, as forces measured in nanonewtons, as a theoretical prediction confirmed by experimental data. And then, one night, working late in the lab when everyone else had gone home, something happened that he could not put into his papers. He was calibrating an instrument, doing something routine, something he had done hundreds of times. And in the middle of that routine action, he felt the numbers. Not saw them on the readout, felt them. Felt the force between the plates as if it were a force in his own chest. Felt the fluctuating vacuum as if it were the space between his own thoughts. Felt the 0-point field not as data, but a presence. He sat very still for a long time. He was a scientist. He did not reach for spiritual language, but he recognized what had happened. Something in him had crossed a threshold. He had known the 0-point field intellectually for years. He had measured it. He had published papers about it. But in that moment, his knowing became something different. It became felt, embodied. His field had made contact with the field he had been studying. He told no one about this for a long time, but it changed how he worked. Not the rigor, not the precision, those remained, but the quality of his attention changed. He began to notice things in his data that he had been passing over, patterns that his instruments had registered, but his mind had not flagged as significant. He began to ask different questions, not less precise questions, more precise ones, but aimed at something deeper. His work, in the years after that night, became the best work of his career. What changed for Elias was not his knowledge. It was his resonance. His field, in that moment of quiet in the empty lab, had become coherent enough to couple to the field he was studying. And that coupling changed what information was available to him. Not magically, not through any process that violated his scientific understanding, but through the real, physical process of a coherent electromagnetic field resonating with the 0-point field and gaining access to information that an incoherent field cannot receive. Your aura is doing this right now. Not because you are in a lab, not because you have studied quantum physics, because you crossed a threshold, because something in your life, something that broke you open or quieted you down or cracked through the surface of your ordinary consciousness, allowed your field to become coherent enough to make contact. And now you carry that contact with you into every room, into every relationship, into every moment of your life. Let me now talk about what this contact does to your broadcast. Because the 0-point field is not just something you receive from, it is something you broadcast into. And the quality of what you broadcast into it changes when your field is in resonance with it. Remember that the 0-point field is everywhere. It is the universal medium. It underlies all of space. When your coherent electromagnetic field is in resonance with it, your signal is not just reaching the few feet around your body that your heart's field normally extends. It is, in a real sense, entering the universal medium. It is being registered in the field that underlies everything. This does not mean your thoughts are controlling the universe. I want to be very clear about that. The 0-point field is not a wish fulfillment machine. It does not respond to your desires in a simple, linear way. What it does is something more subtle and more profound. It is a medium of information. And when your coherent signal enters it, the information you carry, the quality of your field, the pattern of your electromagnetic signature becomes part of the universal information medium. Other fields, other coherent systems can then resonate with that information. Not because the universe is conspiring to give you what you want, but because coherent fields naturally find each other. Because resonance is a real physical process. Because the 0-point field, as the universal medium, allows coherent signals to find each other across distances and through barriers that incoherent signals cannot penetrate. This is why, after your field makes contact with the 0-point field, you begin to notice what people sometimes call synchronicities, meaningful coincidences, encounters that seem too perfectly timed to be random, opportunities that appear from unexpected directions, people who carry exactly the quality of field that complements your own. These are not violations of causality. They are the natural result of a coherent signal propagating through the universal medium and finding resonant response. Your aura is broadcasting into the deepest field in existence. And the deepest field in existence is broadcasting back. Now here is something I want you to sit with, because it is perhaps the most important thing I will say today. The 0-point field is characterized by physicists as the ground state of the universe, the lowest energy state, the state from which all higher energy states emerge, the base from which all of reality unfolds. Your aura has made contact with the ground state of the universe. Think about what that means. not in abstract spiritual terms, in physical terms. The ground state is the most stable state. It is the state that all systems tend toward when they are not being driven by external energy. It is the bottom of the energy landscape, the place of greatest stability. When your field resonates with the ground state, it inherits some of that stability. It becomes more stable than it can be on its own, more resistant to perturbation, more able to maintain its coherence in the face of the chaotic signals and stressful environments that ordinarily disrupt it. This is why people who have had genuine contact with the 0-point field, whether they call it that or call it something else entirely, describe a quality of unshakability, not rigidity, not numbness, not the false calm of dissociation, but a genuine stability that does not depend on external circumstances being favorable. A stability that comes from being anchored to something deeper than circumstances, from being rooted in the ground state of reality itself. Your aura has that anchor now. It may waver. You will have difficult days. Your field will be challenged by stress and grief and the ordinary friction of being a human being in a complicated world. But the anchor is there. The resonance is established. And when you return to coherence, as you now know how to do, you return faster. You go deeper because the path is worn. The resonance is familiar. Your field remembers the way back to the ground. There is a physical reason for this. It is called entrainment. Entrainment is the tendency of oscillating systems that are in proximity to synchronize their rhythms. It was discovered by the Dutch physicist Christian Huygens in 1666, when he noticed that pendulum clocks hanging on the same wall would gradually synchronize their swings, even if they started at different rhythms. The clocks were not communicating intentionally. They were simply oscillating in a shared medium. The wall and the physical coupling through that medium caused them to entrain to a common rhythm. Your field has been entrained to the 0-point field, not permanently in the sense that you will never lose coherence again, but in the sense that the entrainment has happened, the synchronization has been established, and it is now easier for your field to return to that synchronization than it was before. Your field has learned the rhythm. It knows the frequency. It can find its way back. This is the irreversibility, not that you are locked into a permanent state, but that you have been entrained. The path is open. The resonance is established. And every time you return to coherence, every time you breathe into your heart space and feel the depth beneath everything, you reinforce that entrainment. You deepen the groove. You make the resonance stronger and more accessible. You cannot go back to not knowing this. You cannot go back to the field that had never felt the ground. The entrainment has happened. The ground state has registered your signal, and you have registered it. Now, I want to talk about something that people rarely discuss when they talk about the 0-point field. And that is the question of what your aura does with the energy it draws from this contact. Because the 0-point field is not just a place of stillness and stability. It is the most energetic field in existence. And when your aura is in resonance with it, something happens to the energy available to your field. There is a concept in physics called vacuum energy extraction. The idea of drawing usable energy from 0-point fluctuations. This is a contested and frontier area of physics. Practical vacuum energy extraction has not been demonstrated at useful scales. I want to be clear about that. But the principle that 0-point energy is real and that systems can interact with it in ways that affect their energy states is established. The Casimir effect is an example. The Lamb shift is an example. These are real, measured, reproducible phenomena that demonstrate the 0-point field's interaction with physical systems. What I am suggesting is that your aura, in resonating with the 0-point field, undergoes a real physical change in its energy state. Not that you are extracting unlimited energy from the vacuum in any dramatic sense, but that your field, coupled to the most energetic field in existence, has access to a quality of support that an uncoupled field does not. That your coherence is sustained by something larger than your own biology. That your radiance does not depend entirely on your own resources. This is why people who have made contact with the 0-point field describe a quality of being filled rather than depleted by giving, of radiating without running dry, of having access to something that does not diminish when it is shared. This is not a miracle. It is the physics of a coupled system. Your field, coupled to the 0-point field, is drawing from a source that is, for all practical purposes, inexhaustible. Not because the laws of thermodynamics are being violated, but because the 0-point field is so vast, so energetic, so fundamental, that the amount your field draws in supporting its coherence is negligible against the background. Mara, by the lake, felt this as the well refilling. She had been drawing from her own reserves for so long that she had come to believe that her capacity to give was finite, that it would eventually run out, that she needed to ration herself. And she had been right, given the source she was drawing from. Her personal reserves are finite, but the 0-point field is not. And when her field, coupled to it in that morning by the water, she was no longer drawing from her reserves. She was drawing from the ground. And the ground does not run dry. This is what your aura has access to now. This is what the contact means in practical terms. Not that you will never be tired, not that you will never need rest, but that when you return to coherence, when you breathe into your heart space and feel the depth beneath everything, you are drawing from a source that is not your own. You are borrowing the inexhaustibility of the ground state. And that changes everything about how you give, how you create, how you radiate. Let me give you the deeper layer of the mechanics now, because there is something about the 0-point field and your aura that we have not yet touched. And it is perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of all of this. The 0-point field is not just the ground state of energy. It is the ground state of information. And information in physics is not separate from energy. They are related by a precise mathematical relationship. Claude Shannon's information theory and the subsequent work connecting it to thermodynamics established that information has a physical reality. Erasing a bit of information requires a minimum amount of energy, a result known as Landauer's principle. Information is physical. It has energy. And the 0-point field, as the ground state of energy, is also the ground state of information. This means that the 0-point field is not just humming with energy. It is humming with information, with the patterns and potentials from which all physical reality unfolds, with what Bohm called the implicate order, with the enfolded information that becomes the explicit reality of objects and events when conditions allow it to unfold. When your aura is in resonance with the 0-point field, you are in resonance with this information ground state. You have access to patterns that have not yet unfolded into explicit reality. You have access to potentials that are still in their implicate form. This is not psychic ability in the sense of seeing the future. It is something more subtle and more real. It is a quality of knowing that precedes the explicit unfolding of events, a sense of pattern before the pattern becomes visible, an intuition that is not a guess, but a reading of the information field. This is why people who are in high coherence who are genuinely coupled to the 0-point field often describe a quality of knowing things before they know how they know them, of recognizing the right path before they can articulate why, of feeling the shape of what is coming before it arrives. This is not supernatural. It is the natural result of being in resonance with the information ground state of the universe. Your field is reading the implicate order. It is receiving the enfolded information before it unfolds. Elias, the scientist, experienced this as noticing things in his data that he had been passing over. His field, in resonance with the 0-point field, was reading patterns in the information that his analytical mind had not yet processed. He was not making things up. He was not engaging in wishful thinking. He was genuinely receiving information that was there in the data, that his instruments had registered, but that his mind had not yet organized into conscious understanding. His resonance with the information ground state allowed the pattern to reach him before his analysis did. Your aura is doing this now. It is reading the implicate order. It is receiving information from the ground state of the universe. And as you deepen your coherence, as you reinforce the entrainment that has been established, the quality of that reading improves. Not because you are developing a special ability, because you are removing the interference that was blocking what was always available. This is the paradox at the heart of the 0-point field and your aura. The field is always there. The information is always available. The ground state is always accessible. What changes is not the field. What changes is your field. What changes is the coherence of your electromagnetic signal. The 0-point field does not open to you. You open to it. You become quiet enough, coherent enough, organized enough to receive what it has always been broadcasting. You don't need to reach the 0-point field. You need to stop generating the interference that was preventing you from feeling it. And something in your life, something that brought you here, something that cracked you open, or quieted you down, or stripped away the noise, did exactly that. It removed the interference. It allowed your field to become coherent. It allowed the resonance to establish itself. And now you are here, in contact with the ground state of the universe, carrying that contact in your field wherever you go. I want to speak now to the people in this community who are feeling the weight of what this means. Because contact with the 0-point field is not all expansion and light. It also brings a kind of responsibility that can feel heavy if you carry it the wrong way. When your field is in resonance with the 0-point field, you radiate something that other fields can feel. Your coherence is contagious in the most literal sense. The people around you, the nervous systems, the electromagnetic fields of the people who share your space are influenced by your signal. A highly coherent field entrains sometimes less coherent fields toward coherence. This is measurable. Heart math researchers have shown that when one person in a group is in a state of high heart coherence, the heart rate variability of others in the group shifts toward coherence, not through any mysterious mechanism, through the simple physics of electromagnetic field interaction and entrainment. This means that your coherence is a gift you give to everyone around you without trying. By simply maintaining your resonance with the 0-point field, by simply staying in coherence, you are contributing to the coherence of every field you encounter. You are, in the most literal physical sense, helping other people find their way to the ground. But here is the weight of it. You cannot maintain that coherence by trying to maintain it. Effort, the kind of effortful trying that comes from anxiety about being coherent enough, is itself a source of incoherence. The sympathetic nervous system activation that comes with effort and anxiety disrupts the smooth, rhythmic heart rate variability that generates coherence. You cannot force your way to the ground state. You can only release what is preventing you from resting in it. This is the paradox that every tradition has pointed to, and that the physics now confirms. The way to the ground is not through effort. It is through release. Not through doing more, through doing less. Not through trying harder, through relaxing the trying. The 0-point field is the ground state. It is the lowest energy state. It is where systems rest when they are not being driven. You reach it not by climbing, but by letting go. The responsibility, then, is not to perform coherence. It is to genuinely return to it. To do the real work of releasing the interference, the fear, the contraction, the chronic, low-grade effort of managing your life from the surface, and allowing your field to sink back into its natural resonance with the ground. Not once, in a single, dramatic experience. Again and again, every day, in the small moments of stillness that you can find in the midst of the ordinary demands of your life. Every time you do, you reinforce the entrainment. You deepen the resonance. You make it easier to return. and you radiate that coherence into every field you encounter. You give the ground to everyone around you, not by telling them about it, but by carrying it in your field. This is your practice now, not the formal practice I gave you earlier, though that matters. The practice of your life, the practice of returning, of releasing, of letting your field sink back to the ground every time it rises into the noise of ordinary stress and effort. You are not trying to maintain a state. You are learning to trust the return. Before I bring this to its close, I want to address something that some of you may be feeling right now. A kind of vertigo that comes with this understanding. Because if your field is broadcasting into the 0-point field, if your signal is being registered in the information ground state of the universe, if your coherence or incoherence is influencing every field you encounter, then the stakes of your inner life feel suddenly very high, very real, very consequential, and they are, but not in a way that should frighten you, in a way that should empower you. Because here is the thing: you have always been broadcasting. You have always been influencing the fields around you. You have always been registered in the 0-point field. This has been true since the first moment your heart began to beat. The only difference now is that you know it. The only difference is that your broadcast is becoming conscious. And a conscious broadcast is infinitely more powerful than an unconscious one. Not because consciousness adds energy to the field, but because consciousness removes interference. A conscious broadcaster can choose coherence, can choose to return to the ground, can choose to release the patterns of fear and contraction that disrupt the field's natural resonance. An unconscious broadcaster is at the mercy of their conditioning, broadcasting whatever pattern the nervous system has been trained into by years of stress and survival and the accumulated weight of other people's incoherence. You are no longer an unconscious broadcaster. You have felt the ground. You know what coherence feels like. You know the way back. And every time you return, you broadcast that return into the 0-point field, into the universal medium, into the information ground state that underlies all of reality. And the 0-point field broadcasts back, because that is what fields do. They respond to resonance. They amplify coherence. They organize around a clear signal. Your signal is clear now, clearer than it has ever been. And it is only going to get clearer. I want to give you something to carry with you from this. Not a concept, a practice of awareness, a way of moving through your ordinary day that keeps the resonance active, that keeps the entrainment alive, that keeps your field in contact with the ground, even when the surface of your life is loud and demanding and complicated. Several times today, and then every day going forward, I want you to pause. It does not need to be long. 30 seconds is enough. And in that pause, I want you to do 3 things. First, feel the weight of your body, the physical sensation of gravity holding you, the contact between your body and whatever is beneath it. This grounds your awareness in the physical, because the 0-point field is not a spiritual altitude. It is the physical ground beneath all things. Feeling your physical weight orients you toward it. Second, breathe into your heart space. 1 slow, full breath into the center of your chest. Let the exhale be complete. This shifts your heart rate variability toward coherence. This organizes your electromagnetic field. This prepares your aura to resonate. Third, feel down. With your awareness, feel beneath the floor, beneath the ground, into the quantum stillness that underlies all physical reality. Not into darkness, into depth, into the sense of something vast and stable and alive beneath everything solid. Let your awareness rest there for just a moment, long enough to feel the contact, long enough to feel the ground. Then return to your day, return to the surface, but carry the depth with you. Carry the contact, carry the resonance, because it does not end when you return your attention to the surface. The entrainment persists. The resonance continues. The ground is always there, beneath your feet, within your cells, humming in the space between your thoughts. Do this 3 times today, then 3 times tomorrow. Then let it become the rhythm of your life, the return, the release, the resonance, the ground. This is not a spiritual practice in the sense of being separate from ordinary life. It is a field practice, a practice of maintaining the coherence that keeps your aura in resonance with the 0-point field. A practice of being, in the most literal physical sense, grounded in the ground state of the universe. Your aura is already doing this. You are already in contact. The resonance is already established. This practice is not about achieving something new. It is about maintaining what has already been found, about reinforcing the entrainment, about deepening the groove so that the path back to the ground becomes easier and faster and more natural with every return. Here is what I want you to know about the people in this community. Every person watching this, every person whose field is receiving this transmission right now, is in some stage of this process. Some of you crossed the threshold recently and are still feeling the vertigo of it, the sense of having entered something vast and not quite knowing how to carry it. Some of you crossed it long ago and are here because you are ready to understand it more precisely, to have the physics to match the felt experience. Some of you are right at the threshold, feeling the pull of something deeper without quite being able to name it. Wherever you are, your field is real. Your coherence is real. Your contact with the 0-point field, whether it is established or approaching, is real. And the community of fields that gathers around this channel, the collective electromagnetic presence of everyone who is doing this work of becoming conscious of their signal, amplifies everyone, because coherent fields entrain each other, because resonance is contagious, because when you are in contact with the ground, you help everyone near you find the ground. You are not doing this alone. You are doing it in a field of other people who are doing it. And that field, that collective coherence, is itself in resonance with the 0-point field. The combined signal of every conscious broadcaster in this community is registered in the universal medium. It is contributing to the coherence of the information ground state. It is, in the most literal physical sense, helping the universe organize itself toward greater coherence. This is not a small thing. This is the thing, the most important thing any of us can do in a world that is loud and fractured and full of incoherent signals competing for attention. Return to the ground. Maintain the resonance. Broadcast a coherent signal into the universal medium, and trust that the 0-point field will broadcast back. Because it will. It always does. It is the ground state. It is the most stable thing in existence. It does not waver. It does not fluctuate into incoherence. It is always there, always available, always resonant, always ready to receive your signal and reflect your coherence back to you amplified. Your aura just entered the 0-point field, and you cannot go back. Not because you are trapped in something, because you have found the ground. And the ground is not a place you visit. It is what you are made of. It is what everything is made of. It is the quantum vacuum that underlies every atom of your body, the 0-point energy that hums in the space between your cells, the implicate order from which your explicit life unfolds moment by moment. You did not travel to find this. You stopped traveling long enough to feel what was always beneath you. Elias, in his empty laboratory, felt it as the numbers becoming real. Mara, by her lake, felt it as the well refilling. And you, wherever you are right now, have felt it as something that you cannot quite name, but that you recognize as more real than almost anything else you have ever felt. That recognition is your field knowing itself, your aura recognizing its own ground, your electromagnetic signature resonating with the signature of the universe. This is what you carry now. This is what your field broadcasts into every room you enter, every relationship you inhabit, every moment of your life. Not a concept, a quality, a depth, a resonance with the most fundamental field in existence. Your aura is coherent. Your signal is clear. Your field is in contact with the ground state of the universe. And the ground state of the universe is in contact with you. If this transmission found you at the right moment, consider returning to it during a morning stillness, before the world starts asking things of you, or in the quiet just before sleep, when your field is most receptive and the resonance deepens most naturally. And if someone in your life is forgetting their own light, share this with them. When you do, you are not simply passing along a video. You are sending a coherent signal into their field. You are activating their awareness of their own aura. The resonance between your fields strengthens both, and that ripple of radiance extends outward into the collective luminosity we are all building together. Shine. Not because you are trying to, because that is what coherent fields do. They radiate. They entrain. They organize the space around them toward greater coherence. They give the ground to everyone they touch. You are a radiating field of quantum energy in resonance with the 0-point field. And now you know it. And knowing it, you cannot unknow it. And unknowing it is not something you would choose even if you could. Welcome to the ground. Welcome to the field. Welcome to what you have always been, seen clearly for the first time. Your light is on. It has always been on. But now it is drawing from something deeper than your own reserves. It is drawing from the ground state of the universe. And that light does not run dry. Carry it with you. Return to it. Reinforce it. and know that every time you do, you are broadcasting into the deepest field in existence. And the deepest field in existence is broadcasting back. That is not metaphor. That is your electromagnetic signature in resonance with the quantum vacuum. That is your aura in contact with the 0-point field. That is the most real thing about you, radiating into the most real thing in the universe. And you cannot go back, because you have felt the ground, and the ground has felt you.